Hello, GW host. My name is Said Martinez Calderon, Creative Director of Global Entrepreneurship Week. And today I'm going to show you how to do the video, not the video, pardon me, the activities upload process. And I know that several of you are having issues with it, and it may seem frustrating. And there's still a few things we're still trying to work out, and I will have updates on that. But in the meantime, I want to show you how to use the bulk upload feature so that it could be the most efficient way as possible. And so I already have Google. I'm going to be doing the example with Japan, and I'm also going to be bringing up the Excel spreadsheet. It is very important that you have as much information as possible. If not, it's very difficult for us to be able to navigate the website, if any, and be able to extract the information needed to have them as placeholders and be able to input them in Drupal. And so, unfortunately, for this one, as an example, I won't be able to put in the MIT or the Center for Entrepreneurship Development being the first two because I really do need a contact name. And I try to navigate to enterplanet.org, and I don't read Japanese very well, and even in the English section, there is not a section where it gives me contact information. So for the sake of that, we're only going to be able to go through the other five, I believe. Yes. And so, okay, we can get started. So I'm already logged in as administrator, so you should be able to see this panel. And the very first thing that you need to do is you need to create your venues. And here you'll be able to plug in a few of them at a time. So if we start out with the first one that we're able to do, we have Startup Week in Tokyo. And so the town, it's going to be Tokyo, and the title is Startup Week in Tokyo. And then we can do it for the rest of them. For Kyoto, actually I only know Hajime Mashite. Osaka, Sendai, Fukuoka. One of the things that you can do here, for example, being Startup Weekend, is that Drupal has this thing with once you create a venue or a partner and you're plugging in the activity, it starts trying to guess who it is that you're going to assign it to. And right now, this is a design issue, but the field will be too narrow for you to be able to tell as to what startup town that particular event is. And you'll see what I mean in a few moments. So we already have our town in the title, so we can submit them, and you have created the venues. You cannot publish activities without first creating the venue and the partners because you need to assign who created, who is hosting the activity, and where the activity is taking place. So after you created your venues, you're going to navigate to create partners on the right side, and it's a similar feel like we had before. And you see, this is the reason that I made the message a few days ago that we need as much information as possible. So let's go back. All right, email. For this one, we were only able to gather a more generic email, being info@startupweekend.org. So that will be our one partner. And the organization is Startup Weekend. Startup Weekend Tokyo. Because they're the sub-organizers. So for this one, we are going to have to submit it to all the other ones. And the organization name will be Startup Weekend plus the town. So again, Kyoto. And I'm just copying and pasting. And then for the username, it's not going to create a completely new profile. All the username is, again, is just a way for Drupal to be able to tell who this ID belongs to. And so for this one, we're just going to have Startup Weekend. And we can do this for all of them since... Okay, and for this one, again, I might be incorrect. And as being able to facilitate this process, since we don't have all of the information that is necessary, we can only guesstimate and approximate to who this is the closest person that is involved. And if you really want to be very particular as to who the exact contact point is, you can always go back as a host admin and be able to modify my changes and those of our interns. So for this one, it's going to be Marger. And again, I'm just going to copy and paste. Okay, so now that we have all the information, we just submit it. And if any case you needed to submit more, you saw that field where you can add 5 more. So here, Drupal has created an ID for this username, which you'll see why this comes in handy for that. This is not so much information for you to know, it's more so for Drupal. But now that we've created it, we go to the activities. And I believe this is where most of you are going to first, and that is where the frustration stems from, that afterwards you cannot edit and assign the venue. So the name of it, okay, so this is Startup Week in Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, Sendai, Fukuoka. Okay, and for the summary, this is just a teaser, and I know that you want to put as much information as you can. However, we are limited to 80 characters. Unfortunately, it's not the Twitter style where it's 140 characters, but it really is where we're trying to get you to say the most with the least. And here, for example, we're going to go to the description of the startup weekend, and I will only be able to go with this as an example. Startup weekend is a global grassroots movement. So I'm going to copy that. It's going to be the summary for all of them, since they're all startup weekends. The start date, if you hover over, you're not sure of the format, it's going to be numerical, day, month, and then the year. So it's understood it's going to be November 2012, but for this one, we're going to do the 16. So we're going to plug in 16/11, and you can see I've done this before, so it already remembers. And the next one is also the 16th. And Osaka is for the 9th. Why am I so slow? Oh, I fell at life. Okay. And the other 2 were also the 9th. This is going to be an in-person event, year 2012. Participants. It is very important for you to gather as accurate data for this, but we cannot leave it empty, and I did not have that information. So our generic and default for the startup week, as an example, is 100, since I don't think 10 people just show up to a startup weekend. And I really do encourage all of our hosts to go back and modify the number of participants. So we're going to put 100, 100, 100. All right, this is where the partner we were talking about, that we created the username for Drupal to be able to tell who is the one hosting this. And for that, we had Startup Weekend. And see, as I was typing it, Drupal was already trying to guess who the username was. And this is where I was talking about earlier, that the field is pretty narrow, where you cannot finish reading all of it. But since that's the only username I've created, I know it's Startup Weekend. And as soon as I select it, this is the ID number that's being assigned to it for Drupal to be able to tell who the partner is. And as far as for the venue, if I start putting Startup Weekend, it's going to start trying to guess them. And this is all the selections. And because the field is too narrow, and this is something that we're working with our developers to modify, this is how it is right now. So the best way for you to be able to type it without putting the wrong venue is to have the venue, the same name, be the venue name from the name field. So here, knowing that it's Startup Week in Tokyo, I'm just going to copy that, paste it, and I know for a fact that that's the one. So we're going to do the same for the other ones. And if you can see a pattern of Drupal, the way it is assigning the numbers, you can tell in the order that you were creating them. So I know that I'm right. And uh-oh. Startup weekend, Sendai. There you go. Okay, and now submitting startup week. Again. I'm just gonna copy this because I only have one username, and see it's the same partner because you see the same username ID. So now that we've put all of these fields in, again, if you want to add more, you can increment at 5 activities at a time. And once you start getting the hang of this, you'll see how much easier and how quite simple it is. And then we submit them, and green is a wonderful color to see. So you see that all of these have been updated successfully. To verify that, you see that the activities in the partner account has changed. By default, we have 1 activity and 2 partners from the generic template. And you can click on it and see that indeed the activities have been submitted and are uh, published. And if you would just like to test that to make sure, I'll go through a different browser. And we'll check it out. And let's do a hard refresh because there was a previous cache on it. Okay. And as you can see, here they are. The reason it was displaying 1 activity and 2 partners was because I just submitted it, so it has to take some time to propagate throughout the site, or I also might have had a previous cache when I visited the site earlier. But you can see that the activities are indeed live and they're published, and that's pretty much all it is. And it's I understand that it's very frustrating, and but I assure you, once you start getting the hang of it, it really is quite easy and it's very straightforward. The other thing, I know that several of you have already tried to create the activities and you weren't able to publish them because the venue field is not being assigned. And that is an issue that we're working out with our developers in Slovakia. So I will have an update on that really soon. And you can reach me over the weekend. So you can still email me and I'll do my best to respond. I'll also be trying to hammer away and get as many activities as we can. And the last thing is that we will be able to provide Google Analytics to the site traffic after the week is over. And let's see, what else did I want to mention? I believe that's it. So again, if you have any questions, you can email me at smartinez@unleashingideas.org, and I encourage you to look over the previous video tutorial that I did of the whole walkthrough, and also go back to your handbook. And but other than that, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to talking to a lot of you so we can troubleshoot your activities issue, and we'll make this happen. So again, thank you.